Hi, I'm Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections, and today I'm answering the question, does a long home inspection mean bad news for the seller? So I'll just come right out and say it at the beginning. A long home inspection is not necessarily bad news. There's a lot of things that will affect the length of a home inspection, and today I'm going to talk about a few of those different variables. Now, obviously, the biggest variable is going to be the house. I shouldn't say obviously. I shouldn't say biggest. One of the variables, let's just leave it at that. One of the variables is going to be the house itself. All things being equal, I'm going to go through a bunch of different potential things that will change this. All things being equal, a large house is going to take more time to inspect than a small house. Older houses take more time to inspect than newer houses. Things have changed, things have broken down, things have gotten to the end of their service life. People have probably done some improper repairs over the years. The older a house is, all things being equal, the longer it's going to take to inspect. And for our pricing, size and age are the only two variables we use to determine the price of our home inspections. Now, if we could, we would drill down and we'd ask a heck of a lot more questions. And we tried to figure out a bunch of these other variables that are going to make the home inspection take longer, but it's really tough to scale these types of questions. So that's what we base our pricing on, and those are probably two of the biggest variables, but it's not the only ones. There's other stuff like how complicated the house is. All things being equal, one gigantic room is going to take a lot less time to inspect than 3 smaller rooms. Once rooms get chopped up, it takes more time. A house in its original condition is going to take less time to inspect than a house that has been remodeled, where people have gone through and moved walls and changed plumbing and put additions on. All of that stuff makes a house take more time to inspect. Complicated houses take more time to inspect. When you've got a house with 4 different roof coverings, it's going to take us more time. Attics and crawl spaces add a significant amount of time to the inspection. If there's one attic, we assume every house is going to have one attic. That's kind of how we budget our time. But if you've got 2 attics, 3 attics, that really starts to increase the time, because it takes a lot of time to inspect an attic. You got to clear stuff out of the opening. We got to lay down our mats. You got to set up a ladder. You got to delicately move the opening and access it and put it back. All this stuff adds up to a lot of time. And usually in Minnesota we don't have crawl spaces, but when we do, that significantly adds to the time. And then how tall the house is makes a difference in how long it takes. If we've got a 2-story house and we need to use our extension ladder, it can take a fair amount of time to get the ladder off of our truck and set it up and walk the upper roof and then maybe walk the lower roof. And if it's one of those roofs where we can't walk, but we can access with our ladder, our policy is that we lean our ladder up against a number of different areas, and that is a lot of ladder settings. It's probably the most time-consuming way for us to inspect a house is with multiple ladder settings. So all of these different things affect how much time we spend at the house. And then that's just the house itself. And and of course, a house in good condition is going to take less time to inspect than a house in poor condition. Now, a house in poor condition, our euphemism for that, the real estate euphemism is deferred maintenance. We say this house has a lot of deferred maintenance. And if you're reading between the lines, it's a really nice way of saying the current owners ain't done nothing to this house to maintain it. They've put off a lot of stuff that they should have been doing over the years, and now the house is not in such good a shape. That's what deferred maintenance means, just so you know. And then, so that's the house itself, but what about the inspector? All things being equal, an inspector who takes longer is going to be doing a more thorough inspection. You could have one inspector who shows up who inspects the roof, 2-story roof, and all those things I just described, with different ladder settings and all that, that's not required by home inspection standards of practice. All the home inspector needs to do is look at it from the ground. Ideally, they're going to be using a camera that's got a zoom lens, or they'll use some binoculars, but they don't need to even do that. All they need to do is look at it from the ground. That is the minimum standard of practice. And then what about attics? Home inspectors don't need to crawl through attics. All they need to do, the minimum standard, is to pop open the access panel, move it a little, stick your head up there, take a little look around, and call it good. They don't need to disturb any insulation. So it depends on who you're hiring. Some home inspectors may take a lot longer to do the same inspection. And of course, there's difference in the amount of time it takes some home inspectors to do stuff. You can have some home inspectors who will do the same job, but they're just faster at it. So I'm not saying that more time always means a more thorough inspection. I'm saying all things being equal, that's what it means. And then it also depends, does the home inspector write their reports on site? That's a big difference. If a home inspector is writing the report on site, they're going to be spending a fair amount of time using their computer or tablet or phone and putting a bunch of comments in electronically. That takes time. If a home inspector doesn't do any of their reporting on site and all they do is take photos, it's going to take them less time on site. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. Back when I was out in the field inspecting all the time, I would never write reports on site. Now, the way we do it at StructureTech, we write a lot of our reports on site. I don't think we ever do all of them, but a fair number of people on our team do a fair amount of writing while they're on site. So there's a mix, and it depends on the house and how much time we have, how much we end up writing on site. So there's a lot of variables there. And then, of course, you've got the client. Different clients are going to take different amounts of time. If the client is there throughout the whole inspection, which we really don't encourage anymore, it makes the inspection take longer. They ask more questions, it's distracting. I don't think we can do our best work while the client is there the entire time. And especially if you have clients showing up at different times. If you got the husband who shows up a half hour in and wants a recap of what we've seen so far, and then you got, the wife shows up an hour and a half in and she wants a recap. All these things take time. So the people showing up is going to affect how long we take. And then, of course, if you've got an engineer who shows up to the inspection, it's going to take twice as long to have all of our interactions because engineers have more questions and they're never satisfied until they can repeat your answer back to you in their own words. They like to fully understand this stuff. And this isn't a knock against engineers. I have no problem with this. It just is what it is. This is how they are. They like the detailed answers to all these things. And then, of course, if the more clients we have at the inspection, usually the longer it takes. So bottom line is, there's a lot of different variables to how long the inspection is going to take, a lot of stuff that's going to affect it. The condition of the house is just one of those things. It's a small piece. So if you have a home inspection that's booked for 4 hours and your inspector is there for 4 hours and 2 minutes, don't freak out. Doesn't mean you have a bad house, doesn't mean that things are going south. There's just a lot of variables going on that you probably have no idea about. And vice versa. If you're a home inspection client and your home inspector books a time for 4 hours and they get done in 3 hours, you don't need to freak out that they didn't do a thorough job. There's a lot of variables going on that could have led to a shorter inspection. So, hope this gives a little bit of insight into that question. Is a long home inspection bad news? Short answer, no. Okay, I'm Ruben Saltzman with StructureTech Home Inspections. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.